Terry Murphy, senior editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, in the men's room with Murph. And today we have the man in the men's room, John Giaimo, who is the CEO of Realty Times and the former founder of Home Seekers. We're here to celebrate the 30-year anniversary of MLS listings on the web. And John, you were like one of the visionaries at that time. Tell us a little bit about what's going on from where it started to where it is now.
Well, thanks, Terry, and definitely was a journey, I have to say. It actually started back with a company that I had called Visual Listings, which we essentially put kiosks in mall. You know, those carts that you see, we made them into little houses. And then we had touchscreen and we had videos of walkthroughs of home, not video walkthroughs, but slideshows.
And touch screens were brand new back then.
Oh, gosh, yeah, it was all absolute cutting edge. Matter of fact, a user could touch the screen, search for two-bedroom, two-bath at a certain price range, and it would do a slideshow of homes that met that search. Now, you have to understand, this was all on CD-ROM. Okay. And we could only put like 300 houses on one CD-ROM back then because of the limitation. But we were charging agents for this because not only did it do a slideshow, but we were also doing audio. It actually had an audio walkthrough of the of that listing that you were looking at. And it even had a print button, and it would print a flyer. And not only that, but it was staffed. We had full-time during all mall hours, a staffer that would help people and assist them on it. Now, we charged agents $20, and we were in, honestly, dozens and dozens of malls. I got sponsorship from mortgage side, from title side. We were charging agents $20 a month, okay, to have their listing on that mall kiosk. And then a recession hit. And, you know, the first thing a lot of the agents do today is stop advertising, right? So it was frustrating because obviously we had rent to pay, staff to pay. And so it went from 14 employees to just my wife and I, Melinda, running Visual Listings. Now, the good news that happened, though, was that I did build relationships with MLSs. I did with the CEOs and the various local guys nearby, and mostly in California at the time. And it became to a point that the internet was starting to be. And I said to myself, well, I got some code here that works on a CD-ROM. It must work on the internet. So I got a developer and essentially put it on the web. And just doing it at that point with just the limited data that we had, limited images. But then I had a good conversation with Russ Bergeron, which I understand you're also going to be interviewing or have interviewed. And Russ said, you know what, we need to get all of it. And so we need to get all the whole enchilada. Let's work on that. And that's what he did. Honestly, he crusaded for that. And this happened, way early before there was any full listings on the web by any competitor that came to be soon after. And he was able to arm wrestle his board in regards to getting them to release the data, release the images, and hence Home Seekers was born. And the funny other story I have to tell you, the other funny story is that the name Home Seekers was actually a happenstance as well. Back then you had to call one source, one place, to, I think it was Network Solutions, and you had to essentially, register with them. There was no other place that you could go. Meanwhile, I've got this rep on the phone, and I'm giving her names. I said, well, homesforsale.com. Now it's taken. And I'm giving her these names and all these different things. And even though it was way back when, people were buying these domains early on. And I said, oh, gosh, I didn't think this through. I didn't think that all these were taken. And she says, well, let me check this. She says, well, I see Home Seekers is available. I said, done. So there was the market research that I put into creation of homeseekers.com. And then the journey grew from there. We had more MLSs, and it just exponentially grew. We had, I think at our peak, just under 2 million listings nationally. I was traveling all over the country talking to executive officers. But it wasn't that easy at the very start because, as you mentioned early on, the brokers at the time were just really upset. They at that time of history of real estate and brokers and agents, the listing book was their holy grail. They carried that book everywhere. I mean, they showed their clients. So the listings, that's how they sold listings, or at least got people to go look at listings. And so we essentially were taking the book and making it public. So that was their value proposition at that time. That's what they considered to be their value proposition. And so literally pitchforks and knives. And I mean, they came after it. I had lawsuits. I had lawyers. It was really very, stressful time.
It was a very transitional time because like you said, those books were our holy grail, but the problem is they were printed. And so by the time you got a listing, as an active agent at that time in that transition, it was almost obsolete, including the comparative market analysis books, the souls. Because I bought my own series. You would never go through that much work today, but you had to fight. And even Bob Hale talks about this in our interview. You had to fight the agents themselves. You had to fight the franchises. Everybody wanted to keep the data to themselves when in fact it made sense for the buyer, the consumer, to see what was available. So really, Home Seekers was the first real portal for that, because RIN came later, Realtors Information Network.
Yes, and that was the interesting part, because honestly, I never expected there to be competition to suddenly appear. I mean, it was like, gosh, this is so unique. There's nothing like this out there. And then certainly soon after, between Realtor.com, Homes.com, and of course, I threw the wrench into the works for RIN, the Real Estate Information Network, I believe is what it was called. And you were very much involved with all of that, Terry, back in those days. And they started at, I don't know, what was it, $5 a listing per month, or?
It was like $5, and then it went down to $1, and then it was a quarter. And then it was free.
Yeah, well, and the rent.
But remember, we were paying to put it in MLS before there was an internet. So we were paying because we had to pay somebody to key it all in to that book. So you're right, it was money.
So it's, and of course I was free at the time, and I really wasn't focused on revenue. I just knew if I built this, the revenue would come over time, and certainly it did. So essentially I merged with another company that essentially had a public, they had a public shell. They weren't public really. And they were called NDS Software, and they were effectively working on the similar product, but they were doing it on, guess what? CD-ROM, okay, not on the internet. And there's their vice chairman, Doug Swanson, called me one day out of the blue, and he said, I've been trying to put this product out now for about 1.5 years, and I've been talking to executive officers and doing meetings at MLSs, and everybody tells me I need to go talk to John Giaimo. And so he said, so that's why I'm calling you today, to talk to John Giaimo. So that conversation turned into where I merged Home Seekers into NDS Software. We did do a public offering. And honestly, at our peak, had a $1.2 billion market cap. And it really was like we were rocking and rolling. Things were going incredibly well. We had to go through a lot of hoops because, as you may recall, Stuart Wolf of Realtor.com came up with the Gold Alliance program, which was an exclusive arrangement. And there were a lot of envelopes being passed around, and there was all this stuff. Next thing you know, I'm sitting in Washington, D.C., 3 days under subpoena by the Department of Justice, talking about Stuart Wolf. Okay. And of course, I don't know where any of that went. They never checked back with me, interesting enough. But in any event, there was a lot of issues. And so I ended up having to, those that signed the MLS Gold Alliance exclusive deal, I ended up having to go directly to the brokers, and I was up for it and said, hey, brokers, your MLS signed an exclusive deal. I got Home Seekers. It's a great site. Just send me your listings. And I did. And so we were able to actually keep our numbers up by going directly to the brokers in many of the areas. So there was a lot of stuff going on back then. Home Seekers actually started something called XMLS Web, which was really a lot of those components are in use today for MLSs that's out there. We started the first IDX solutions out there. There's so many components that we put together. We had a total of just under 400 employees at our peak. We did a lot of acquisitions, and it was really our time to shine. But then, of course, 9/11 hit. And unfortunately, we were already doing a financing because the dot-com bubble busted, as you may recall, in 2001. And so Wall Street says, we ain't giving anybody any money. We were able to get with our broker, our brokers that were putting up, dealing with with Wall Street, and basically we had a $35 million funding coming into play, and I'm figuring I'm set, but then 9/11 took out our guys, so it was really a terrible thing. I had worked with Bill Foley at the time, and at Fidelity, and said, hey, I need your help, and we ended up doing a deal where Bill took control of a lot of the components of Home Seekers at the time. So it's quite a history, and it kind of deflated at the end for me. I was, because of all of the bad things that had happened, particularly with 9/11 and such. But interesting enough, Jody Lane, the former CEO of Realty Times, called me and says, "Hey, John," he says, I want to talk, and I want to be in that meeting with Bill Foley and all that. So he came into LA. He's leaving town after that meeting, and we're at the LA airport in the lobby because you couldn't go anywhere at the time because of 9/11. And we were at a McDonald's that happened to be in the lobby, and he's on the back of a McDonald's napkin. He's talking about market conditions. It's something he's thinking about doing. And I said, you should run with that. That's a cool thing, Jody. And he said to me, if you come to work for me, I'll run with it. And I said, that's the best offer I've had all day, dude. You got it. So that's how I started. Worked with the Realty Times for about 8 years, and then left for a period of time with all different projects that I went into and ventures and such, and then ended up acquiring Realty Times in 2017, and we've been growing it ever since. I mean, it's really June, we hit 300,000 unique visitors. We're going to hit 400,000 for July. So we actually have turned the company around and have turned it into now it can be a place to go. Now, what's cool about what's happened through Home Seekers and such, which, by the way, I ended up being on the board of directors for Homes.com because a competitor after Home Seekers. And until they got acquired, and so it was still an interesting ride, and I'm so proud of what happened. Being the founder in regards to starting the first listings on the web and all that. You know what? I tell people all the time, that's not bragging rights. It only means I have the most arrows in my back.
It was a time. There was so much because the internet was new. We didn't understand. I mean, if you recall, I was with the Internet Crusade, which was sharing with agents all over the country, taking the terror out of technology. And our websites were basically billboards. And then we started linking and framing. And that's when scraping came in. And we had to have code of ethics had to come up to speed with what you could do and what you couldn't do, and putting the names of the company. And it was the wild, wild west on the internet at that time. But you survived so well. You also came up with Bring It Home communities. There were so many things that you've been the visionary for in this. And here we are today with MLS all over the place. As you know, I've been involved with MLS International, trying to get some kind of standardization out there across the globe. because there's lots of places that it's still not dependable. Can I use that word?
Yeah, it's amazing the struggles that we're seeing today in regards to the MLSs and such, um, and the politics that are now involved. There's always been politics involved, but now because of the internet per se, it's been amplified, and there's a lot of guys that are managing it quite well, particularly like people like Bob Hale and such, obviously because
He's doing great.
they do so well. So, and not that there's calamity everywhere. I think there's always been a lot of, in my opinion, Terry, MLS issues with the NAR in regards to having to beat to the NAR drum, and so now it's just coming to a head to where they're just trying to get that more on an even playing field, and not that NAR doesn't have things that that are good to have or should have in regards to them, the policies that are in regards to the MLSs. But anyway, it's as far as the web, look where we are today. I mean, Zillow is really the 800-pound gorilla, and people just know to go there. AI now is taking a major step forward in regards to what's happening with the MLS data. I've worked with several companies in regards to the AI aspect or element being incorporated into their structure, and it's just mind blowing. Where the consumer is going to end up at the end of the day in respect to what the AI will do for them. And I saw it. I was working it, and you're going to see, consumers will see more and more of this as we go. Anyway, so, I could keep you going all day long, Terry, because, there's so many things I'm thinking in my head that I forgot to tell you. But meanwhile, I am going to work on a book that is going to basically tell this story, because I think it's a good story, and I think it should be told over time. And the good news is I don't have an ending chapter just yet, kid.
I think in the age of technology, there isn't one, because while we're inhaling, things are changing. It's amazing to me how courageous, I'll use the word courageous, you had to be at that time. But at the end of the day, it was always about making it a more trustworthy and convenient for the consumer. And there was all this jockeying around and people paying and not paying and whatever. But at the end of the day, we're at a place right now that pretty much you can spot a property in Colorado if you're there, or if you're in Massachusetts, because we have this, ubiquity of all these different options to find property, which helps people make informed decisions, which you've done so well. Your innovative contributions to the industry have been outstanding. And I just feel like if you write that book, it's going to be, and wait for the next chapter, because there'll be more.
Oh, God willing.
Well, Realty Times has done a great job of putting real estate information for both consumers and the industry out there every day. I know that you've got opportunities for people to both sponsor and to get newsletters. And so tell us how to do that.
Well, realtytimes.com, that you'll probably see on your screen, is where we are, www.realtytimes.com. And to reach us, just John at realtytimesnews.com. I really am hands-on with the entire business, totally. And we've got a lot of things we can offer. We'll be offering, for instance, a free RSS feed to any broker or agent that would like to have news on their site. The beauty of Realty Times News is that we're not political. We're not talking about what happened at brokerages. We're not talking about what happened at brands. We're talking about information consumers can use, agents and brokers can share, and actually things that they should know that's going on in the industry currently. That's where we are.
Well, Realty Times News, we've expanded to Realty Times News TV as well. We have lots of interviews and lots of great information. Be sure to go to Realty Times News and realtytimes.com for your latest real estate information. John, continued luck and success with Realty Times. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. Thank you so much for all you do for us and for the industry.
Appreciate you, Terry. Thank you.